We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg. Welcome to Pod Appétit and the start of a brand new season. Today we're kicking off our coverage of the Great British Bake Off Series 11, or as it's known in the US, the Great British Baking Show, Season 8.
Woo!
Woohoo! We're all
Bebo.
excited for this one.
I'm going mad.
So what is the Great British Bake Off? It's a televised baking competition in which amateur baking fans compete to be crowned the UK's best amateur baker. Over the course of 10 hour-long episodes, the series follows the trials and tribulations of the competitors, young and old, from every background and every corner of Britain, as they attempt to prove their baking prowess. Each week, the bakers tackle different baking skills which become progressively more difficult as the competition unfolds. Every episode includes a signature challenge, where competitors riff on classic bakes, a technical challenge which puts their technical skills and their ability to follow a ridiculously pared-down recipe to the test, and finally, a showstopper challenge that should knock the judges' socks off. Each week, one competitor is sent home and one is crowned star baker. Like everything else in 2020, the Great British Baking Show is a little different this year, including a quarantined baking bubble with the contestants and crew. This season's judges are Prue Leith and, as always, Paul Hollywood. Hosted this year by comedians Noel Fielding and Matt Lucas. So on the menu for today, we are covering the first two episodes of the 2020 Great British Bake Off. Episode 1, Cake Week, and Episode 2, Biscuit Week. We will contain our spoilers to the episodes that we're discussing on this current episode of Pod Appétit. So if you're listening along, we won't be spoiling who's in the final, who wins this season. We'll just be covering it as we go.
I appreciate that.
But before we head into the baking tent, let's find out what we've been cooking and eating. LJ, since you're our resident Brit, why don't you start us off? Although I have a feeling you're going to be talking about something very American.
Yeah, not British at all. So I spent the last 2 days making Thanksgiving like I do, or have done every year since I came back from America. In 2008. So yeah, it's been a time because I'm 8 months pregnant. So it's been a challenge, not a technical challenge or a showstopper challenge. Although I don't know, was it show-stopping? You tell me. But I made a lot of things, and I will be eating it from now until Christmas because it was just me and my husband at home.
And the baby.
Oh yeah, the baby, but you know, he can't eat properly yet. He's still not yet born. But yeah, I'm sure he appreciated it. He was kicking a lot when I was cooking and when I was eating, so that's good. I didn't change up my recipes from last year's, and last year's I swapped a couple of my old standards for some of the BA Making Perfect stuff. It was really good, so I just kind of kept that for this year. Sorry guys, I know we're not meant to be giving BA clicks, but you know, I didn't have the time to go looking for new recipes this year, so I just stuck with that, and I was pretty happy with how things turned out. The turkey, I used a Nigella recipe. I did mashed potato with crispy crunch cheese, which was delicious. I did the cornbread stuffing. Didn't use the corn nuts that they suggested. I think that was Rick and Andy's recipe. No, Rick and Chris. Yeah, that was Rick and Chris's recipe. Didn't bother with the corn nuts because I can't get them in the UK, and it tasted fine without it. I did a Bubbish green bean casserole because I've done that for the last, I don't know, 3 years maybe, and that's delicious. That's so good. That's like homemade mushroom soup and deep fried onions on top, and oh, so good. And then BA's best gravy, which is delicious, and I always make like loads because I froze it last year for Christmas and that worked out super well, so I've done the same thing this year. And some parsnips which was a Nigella recipe, just maple syrup and oil, basically. Oh, and mac and cheese, which was a Jamie Oliver recipe.
And the bruleed pumpkin pie.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, and Claire's brulee pumpkin pie, which there's a lot, so much stuff, guys. Oh, and I forgot 2 days before I started all of this, I did a redo of Molly's pumpkin bread with maple butter, and I didn't fuck it up. I didn't overfill the loaf tin. I learned from my mistake, and it came out nice and clean in one piece, and I'm so happy, and I've been having that for breakfast. So yeah, great.
Nice.
So just a small amount of cooking, just a little bit.
I feel like that could feed my whole family.
It probably could.
Like 9 of us. And,
yeah, I usually do it for that amount of people, and there's leftovers. So yeah, I did halve some of the recipes this year, but there's still a lot of food in my fridge. I cannot stress how much food there is in my fridge. But yeah, how about you guys? Did you have good Thanksgivings?
I had a good Thanksgiving. I also made probably a too big meal for just myself and my husband. But I made green bean casserole, the recipe that's just on the back of the French fried onion package, because it's a good recipe despite everything coming from a can. I also made mashed potatoes and gravy, which were both family recipes on my mom's side. I made the Simple is Best dressing, which I first encountered through BA, but it was actually on loan from Victoria Granoff, I believe, is the recipe creator. I swear I've been good about eating vegetarian. You guys just happen to hear about my very few times I've made exceptions, but I had to make an exception for Thanksgiving. So I got a smoked turkey breast. It was about 4.5 pounds, and I ordered it online from Smoking Goose, which I believe listener Mrs. Casper first told us about or tweeted about or something, but it's a butcher shop that has a lot of really good looking meats. So I ordered a smoked turkey breast from them. Nice. And I made pumpkin pie cupcakes. So it was all very good.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was really tasty. The cupcakes are really just the pumpkin pie filling recipe with a little bit of flour added so that you get a little bit more structure to it so you can hold it like a cupcake. But it's really more like the pumpkin pie filling than like a cupcake. It's still very squishy, a little bit stodgy, maybe, as they might say on Great British Bake Off. The only thing that wasn't great was that I burned the pad of my thumb really badly, right at the start of making everything on Thanksgiving Day.
No.
Yeah, I had my 2 pot holders, but only one is an oven mitt. The other one is just, a pot holder. And right when I went to grab the glass casserole dish that was in the oven, it slipped and my thumb just pressed on the dish. And it hurt really, really badly. But it was kind of funny because then cooking became sort of like an episode of Back to Back Chef, because it was me instructing my husband a lot. And it's a bit more difficult than you think when you have to be really precise, I'm like, turn the turkey 180 degrees.
I've got a newfound respect for Carla.
I really do. It was more difficult than I thought it would be, but everything turned out great. It was wonderful. And my thumb feels much better.
Yeah, I was about to say, how's the thumb doing now?
It's much better. I think it might look a little gnarly in a few days, but it looks okay right now. So, Justine, what did you get up to?
Oh boy, yeah, I also had a little mini Thanksgiving with my roommates. It was good times. I actually am really happy with my completed dish because I think it completed like a whole like salt, fat, acid, heat like trip on a plate. Ooh. And I was like, look at me go. I've got, for my main, I did a lentil shepherd's pie. I got that from Minimalist Baker. Also from Minimalist Baker, I got their garlic mac and cheese, and I added caramelized onions to that. It's so good, so garlicky. It's got a whole, roasted garlic bulb in the sauce blended in. Ooh.
Yummy.
Both of your mac and cheese photos looked so good.
So good. I did roasted carrots with thyme. And I did the BA dish I did last year, the lemon parsley cauliflower, because I really think it needs that lemon Like what
good.
what Celine was saying about having that acid to cut through everything else, it really works as a whole dish, and I was really proud of myself, and everybody loved it, and I was like, look at me go, la 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 la. And yeah, as you guys are saying, it's crazy that we're documenting this and we can see like how far we've come like from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All your stuff looked great, Justine. I really liked it.
Oh, thank you. What about you, Amanda?
We had our kind of little bubble Thanksgiving. We each like made a little bit of something. So my signature dish that I make every year is corn casserole, which is my grandma's recipe. It was a big hit this year. I just did a single since we didn't have as many people because of COVID. Couldn't even see my husband on Thanksgiving, which was sad. But yeah, it turned out really well because there were only like 2 ovens that we were using for everything with the 2 households. I had to wake up and make my corn casserole between 2 and 4 in the morning on Thanksgiving Day so that I wasn't in the way of my sisters who were making mashed potatoes and deviled eggs, and they needed to be done before my mom put the turkeys in the oven. And then I had to wait until after my mom was done baking the pies and apple cake and some other things. So it was like we had to kind of like
stagger it.
Yeah, we had to stagger it. My sleep schedule is so messed up now. But the corn casserole turned out really, really well. I was very pleased with it. There was only like a tiny bit of leftovers, and they were gone within about 12 hours after the dinner. And my nephew Liam went and had 4ths of it.
Wow.
He said it was his favorite, and I was so excited. And he was like, "Can you teach me how to make it?" And I was like, "I can, because it's our family recipe, so I can totally teach you."
Oh, that's sweet.
That's really cute. Yeah.
So, the best thing that I think we had that was like a new dish was my mom made apple cake, and she used part of a recipe that was my great grandmother's for it. And it was very good. Again, it would be something that I think Paul Holly would call stodgy, but because it was very like autumnal, and it had cinnamon and nutmeg and apple and nuts, and really, really delicious. And I thought we were like, so Mom, from now on, make this and not apple pie for all Thanksgivings. So
Nice.
I always like cake over pie, so I approve that change.
And she made it in this tin that was also my great grandmother's. So it was really like back from like the 40s. So it was very cool to have it made in that as well.
Well, speaking of cake, should we get into it?
Woo!
Yeah.
All right. Great British Bake Off Episode 1, Cake Week. The new baking bubble abounds with bold Battenbergs, pert pineapple upside-down cakes, and heroic cake busts.
I'm not sure I'd describe any of those pineapple upside-down cakes as pert. But
no, they were kind of the opposite of pert, but it sounds like Netflix wanted the alliteration and didn't really care about accuracy.
Sounds about right.
So as we sort of mentioned, this season is a little bit different because COVID, and they quarantined the cast and crew members in their own baking bubble. And usually the show takes place over the course of 10 weeks, but they shot 10 episodes in the course of about 6 to 7 weeks. So it was a little bit of a truncated timeline behind the scenes. So a pretty uncommon year. This is the one year where I'd really, really like a spin-off reality show about the baking bubble.
They missed a trick with that. I think they could have done like a sideshow that was like a Big Brother style, like in the bubble hotel, because I just think what a unique situation to be in. I think it's amazing what they did to produce the show. I mean, what a commitment. Like literally everyone putting their lives on hold for 7 weeks to, you know, the hosts, the judges, the crew, you know, I just think it's such, you know, it brings a tear to the eye that they were like, no, we're going to make Bake Off happen no matter what.
If any year needs the Bake Off, it's 2020.
Yeah.
I know. I love it.
My first note was, I'm already crying, because just like seriously, like like when they were talking about how they agreed to stay away from their families for this long, and then like Mark with a K was like, and today's my wedding anniversary, and things like that it was just like, oh, it just hit me. And then having had Thanksgiving where I couldn't see my husband, I was just like instantly crying, and my sister Faith was watching with me, and she was like, of course you are. So
it's very cathartic.
Yep.
Well, speaking of changes, we also have a new host with Matt Lucas.
Yeah. What did you guys think of him? Have you seen him in anything before?
I've seen him in Doctor Who, but I have
Right.
not seen him in anything else besides that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was in Bridesmaids, if you guys have seen that. He plays.
He was.
Oh,
yeah.
he was.
He has done a couple of things, but he's
Yeah, I know
kind
him
of
from Little Britain
known-
as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Little Britain is what he's most well known for, I think, in the UK. And before that, he did a show called Shooting Stars, but that ended that was in the 90s. But he's a very well-known comedian, and I wasn't sure if I would like him. I wasn't sure about the dynamic between him and Noel, how that would play out, but actually even by the end of the first episode I was warming to it, and I was like, okay, you're fitting in, it's fine. So because I loved Sandy, and I loved Mel and Sue before that, and I remember when they replaced Mel and Sue with Sandy and Noel, I was like, I don't know, I think I'm gonna hate it, but then I loved it. So I think I just always have this oh no, it's different, it's changed, but actually it's fine. So yeah.
I feel like the changeover of Bake Off judges is very similar to getting a new doctor on Doctor Who. There's always a lot of resistance at first, and everyone's like, oh no, I'm gonna hate him, but then they end up loving them. But I will say, I do think that my ultimate ranking of hosts so far, number one, I love Noel and Sandy. I think they were my absolute favorite. Number two, I'd have to put Sue and Mel. And number three, I'd put Noel and Matt. Not that I don't like them, but of all those combinations, that's probably my least favorite. One thing about Matt as a judge, it's unclear to me whether he's constantly doing impressions or making references that I don't understand as an American, or whether I just don't really align with his sense of humor.
Okay, because I think he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I giggle at almost everything he does.
He's funny, but I don't get it.
I'm just like, I think that's a reference because it seems too specific not to be, but I don't know.
No, he does do a lot of, I would say, a lot of his references are quite British, and I actually that's some of the stuff that I am curious about, because I don't know how much they edit the show for a US audience, if they do at all. So I'm always like, how does that joke play in America? How does that joke, do they know what that is? So yeah, it's quite interesting to hear you say that.
There was one episode later where they're referencing singers and they start singing, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here.
That is, I think that episode, that conversation, the singers he's referencing are very old, they're sort of my parents' era, so it's even people my age and younger are a bit like, who's that must be an old guy. But
Yeah, I will admit, even in this episode for the showstopper, I had to Google some of the people because I was like, I don't know who that is.
Do we have any first impressions of the new bakers?
I have two bakers that I really like so far. I really like Lottie. I like the way that she kind of banters with Noel.
I love that.
I feel like she's able to kind of keep up with him and just be like, go away if she needs him to go away. I also like, and I should have written her name down. Is it
Surah?
Hermine?
Describe this person.
She's the one who knocked the pineapple cakes over.
Surah.
Okay. I enjoy her. And one thing I wanted to say is both Surah and Laura, I feel like are real looking women. And I wrote, these are women who look like me, who have really big hips or are fat girls. And it was really refreshing to see women like that on TV.
Yeah.
I also like Lottie. I like how her 1 minute, not even 1 minute, her description about herself is she's a pantomime producer who listens to Viking metal while doing yoga.
I love that.
Yeah, amazing.
I love love Lottie too, and her drier than over-baked cake sense of humor.
Yeah. So funny. Yeah, and I think that goes really well with Noel. So I think they're a very funny double act together. I really enjoy them. Yeah,
absolutely. I also really like Sura because she walks her cat on a leash, which is amazing to me. I love that.
I bought a leash to do that with my cat, but we never quite made it outside because they were like, what the hell is this?
Another favorite of mine is Mark with a K.
I love Mark with a K. He's so adorable with his ginger beard.
Oh yeah, he's Irish, right? Yeah, the Irish one.
I also really liked Mac because he keeps bees, you guys, and he's an aspiring novelist. So I just loved everything about him.
I wrote bees in my notes.
I also have a little bit of a soft spot for Linda because she reminds me a lot of my grandma, so my nan. They've got a similar, I don't know, temperament. So yeah, she made me laugh a lot. But yeah.
So I feel like we're going to have a lot to say about the Showstopper challenge, but do we have any thoughts on the signature Battenbergs to start?
I feel like Lorea doing, as soon as she's like, I'm doing bubblegum and cream soda, I was like, why? Paul hates it. Have you ever watched Great British Bake Off before? He will hate it. What are you doing?
They always hate when you do like artificial flavorings rather than make your own flavorings. And when they were like, you could see both their faces when they were like, so how are you flavoring this? She was like, oh, out of a bottle. And they were both like, I was like, well, this is going to go well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It didn't look good.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that from the start, and you see it throughout this whole episode, Rowan was like, I'm going to make a Parthenon.
and then it was like a special box for cutting his Parthenon that he couldn't use because his cake didn't cook.
He put cake in a microwave, and I was like,
oh my god.
But I do love that he's like this music teacher that's like just playing flute in the in the forest. But yeah, I couldn't get over the cake in the microwave. That just
right.
I really expected that to come back. I thought the judges would say something, but it's so hard to cram all the contestants in these first few episodes when there's 12 of them. So maybe they did say something and it just didn't make the final cut. But Rowan is great. He's so artistic.
It would have tasted awful. I mean, at least his marzipan looked kind of nice, like the night sky effect that he was going for.
Yeah, they did say it looked neat.
But this was our early lesson about Rowan, is that he's got amazing ideas, but he can't quite pull them off.
Overly ambitious.
Yes. And I feel like half the people's marzipan, I could tell, looked too thick. I was like, come on.
Roll it out.
It was a lot.
It did make me want some marzipan, though.
I love marzipan.
So do I. Oh, so good.
Also, I thought Linda, her design had such an emotional story behind it, and they were just like, well, this is shit, but, you know, sorry about your cousin.
It looked like a bus.
Guys, like, your cousin seemed like a good man, though, and it was like...
terrible homage.
So the technical had a lot of drama. We had what I call pineapple upside down gate.
That was so stressful because I could see it all. It was almost like one of those things that you see in slow motion, because as soon as she started flapping her hands, Sura, to like swat the fly or whatever it was that was it on her stuff, I was like, oh my god, and then it just went everywhere. Poor Dave's cakes all over the floor, and just to see how upset she was when that happened, because obviously he took it really well. He was like, it's okay, like, it happens, don't worry, and he was very, very gracious about it, but she was clearly really upset. And the thing that I love when stuff like that happens on Bake Off, probably more than any other show, is because it's just like, it's a very collegiate atmosphere in the tent rather than competitive. And I love how everyone rallies around everyone, and like even the hosts like Matt and Noel get involved, and they're like, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine, and like calm everyone down. And it's just lovely when that happens. So yeah.
When Matt said it was his fault because he hypnotized her with his beauty, I giggled, and you could tell like that helped break the tension a little bit and help. I don't know, but she won the technical, and she still was sad. And I watched that part with my sister Addie, and she was like, "Oh, she didn't mean to."
No,
I think she felt even worse that she won. I felt really bad for her. I think they should have given her a second just so that she wouldn't feel even more awful for throwing Dave's cakes on the floor unintentionally.
But it's also, I also think it wouldn't. I feel like that was a genuine result. Like Dave would not have come any higher on that leaderboard if all his cakes had made it onto the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they were too
dark.
There was one that was intact. They judged that, and it wasn't looking good. So I don't think it was an unfair result, or he was impacted in any way.
Not at all.
I will say I was disappointed. Rowan coming in third. I knew the technical would save him from his.
Oh yeah.
I wanted him gone.
I feel like they never weigh the technical at all. Like it seems to have no effect on whether someone stays or leaves.
No, and to me, it's probably the hardest challenge, and it's the one that, in terms of the concept of the different challenge rounds, it's the one that really tests your skills and experience as a baker the most, because the recipes are just like ridiculously basic, like make the cake, don't tell you what temperature to put it in the oven or how long to put it in the oven for.
And they do bring it up in judging.
And it's and I just feel like, you have to know your shit to be able to do well in a technical or have a very, very lucky time of it. So I think it's a shame that they don't place more weight on that challenge, because I think it does sort of separate the people who know what they're doing from the people who are maybe winging it a bit.
Yeah, they haven't been totally transparent about how they weight the judging, but it seems clear that they weight the technical the least, because how many times does someone completely fail a technical and then go on to win Star Baker, or the opposite? How many times does someone win the technical and then get sent home that week? I think it does not have a lot of weight in the final judging.
Yeah.
Poor Linda. I mean, she didn't even make cakes, she made fritters.
Linda. Sorry,
right.
These first episodes, I was just like, Rowan and Linda, be gone.
Rowan annoyed me more, I think. Linda, I was forgiving because I was just like, oh, bless her. She's just doing her best. Whereas Rowan was just like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, no, you're not, Rowan. You haven't practiced it. It's not going to happen.
Listen to yourself, Rowan. All right, let's move on to the showstopper, which is perhaps the most I have ever laughed at Bake Off.
I thought this was genius.
I hate it.
The contestants were challenged with making 3D cake busts depicting personal celebrity heroes.
Why?
And the show just became Nailed It, essentially.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It was so funny. I loved it. And I don't care that they did it for the clicks. I just thought it was hilarious.
I laughed so much.
I wrote, these busts are nightmare fuel.
Yes. Tom DeLonge.
Oh my God. Okay, Addie and I were like, how is Tom DeLonge your personal hero?
Dave does look like the sort of guy who grew up idolizing.
Yeah, he does wear those checkered Vans.
Yeah. Well,
True.
And when I was watching that episode the second time, you can tell he actually has gauged ears and just has his gauges out.
Yeah,
you could tell.
So, Amanda, who was it that you didn't know?
It was the one that Lottie did, because I thought it was
Louis Theroux. Louis Theroux. He's a documentary filmmaker, and he's the cousin of Justin Theroux.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was the one that I didn't know, but I thought it was very interesting how she did like a skull as the base. I thought that was smart. Yeah, really smart.
I thought that was clever.
I think that was very smart of her. I thought it was very smart that Peter, unlike Rowan, knows his limits and thought, I'm going to make a bicyclist with a helmet and goggles.
Yeah, I also thought it was smart that Mark K did somebody in marble.
That was also very clever.
Oh, Charles Darwin.
And that Linda was like, I'm going to do Bob Marley, but just like in like random
tie-dye
silhouette color, like not any kind of like
a sea
features.
monster.
Also,
Yeah.
that old white lady saying Bob Marley was her hero. I was like, what is happening?
Oh, man. That was hilarious. So when she said that, she was like, I've been singing it all day. Don't worry about a thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's what Bob Marley had in mind when he wrote that song, like a baking competition.
I thought it was very astute of Paul to say that it was so weird that the Bob Marley cake didn't get a mouth, considering that he's known for
Singing.
his voice and for being a musical performer.
So funny. Oh, my
The
God.
SpongeBob joke was good, though.
That was funny. Yeah.
I just don't get how there were so many like ugly ones.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Well,
like with like
Lupita.
Nyong'o.
Oh, Lupita. If
why
you just
would you set yourself up for failure like that? Not even the most talented baker in the world could make one of the most beautiful people in the world, Lupita Nyong'o, look good in dessert form.
Why choose that? I think, I know people laugh about Laura's Freddie Mercury, but I actually think her approach was probably one of the smartest.
Yeah,
I
doing
agree.
like a
It was like a cartoon
version of someone. So choose someone who has cartoon-like elements that you can just emphasize and people will recognize no matter how badly the bake goes. Do you know what I mean? I just thought it was a really clever design rather than trying to doing it realistically. But yeah.
It was telling in the edit. The only one that they brought up as like really ugly was Lorea's tribute to Miss Lou.
Oh,
Right.
They're like, oh, we've got the photo here. It doesn't look anything like her. I was like, oh, no.
she's going to be out. Well,
Speaking of Lupita Nyong'o, Lorea's cake looked the most like Lupita Nyong'o's Star Wars character,
Yes.
Maz Kanata.
Right.
oh, the
I thought that
eyes.
too.
The bulging eyes.
Yes.
I think that Rowan should have got points off for not doing the shoe bun hair, and he did the rice paper
think so.
hair, and
Yeah.
everything's supposed to be edible.
I know. Well, technically you can eat rice paper, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I was like, you promised shoe buns and you gave us paper. Like, that's not a good sub.
They should have ate the paper and been like, this tastes bad.
But I do think his Marie Antoinette was one of the least nightmare fuelish faces.
Yes.
It was. And it was pretty clever to use the silicone face mold to paint the chocolate into. That was a smart technique, I thought.
Yeah. So is David Attenborough having to have a piping bag like a travel cushion to prop him up. Really made me laugh.
He's
I
having a
just
nap.
couldn't believe it. I'm like, David Attenborough deserves better.
I just want to say the was it Mark with a C had the David Bowie that was Jabba the
Yeah.
Hutt. It was so
Yeah, it was
to
upsetting.
me. I think that might have been the most upsetting because it was like at least Lupita Nyong'o had like a neck and shoulders and like the bust part of it was like really nice looking.
Yeah, well, Noel was about to take it home with him.
But like David Bowie just became like blob face.
I know,
He looked like
David
a corpse.
Bowie. Well, also because they made such a big thing at the beginning when he was describing what he was going to do, and Prue was like, David Bowie has a beautiful, delicate face structure. And I was like, there is no way this cake is going to be beautiful or delicate.
I mean, yes, this is like a talent in of itself. The whole like, you need to be a sculptor, you need to be an artist to be able to do this.
Poor Mark,
Yeah.
though. I did see a photo later of one of his test versions of the cake, and it looked great. So I bet he thought he could do it in the competition. And, well, obviously it didn't
It
work.
didn't work.
Yeah, being in the tent is a different thing altogether, I think, from doing it in the comfort of your own home.
So at the end of the episode, Peter went home as star baker, and Lorea was sent home.
Did you guys all think that Lorea was going to get cut? Like, I always do the thing at the end where I'm like, it's this person and this person. Were your
Yeah.
expectations met, or?
I thought Linda was in trouble, but I think the moment they tasted her Bob Marley mouthless cake and they said it was a delicious cake, I was like, okay, she saved herself there because at least the cake tastes good, and they probably think, well, she's good, let's give her a chance to work on her presentation a bit more. But yeah, I think if you look at Lorea's 3 bakes, none of them were that good. So I think, and she obviously didn't do enough to save herself at all in the showstopper, which is what they like to see. So I thought she was in trouble.
I think her artificial flavoring in the top and like the signature already was putting her in. And then the fact that she couldn't get the flavors right in the showstopper, I was like, oh yeah, she's going home.
Well, also her signature bubblegum and soda, Battenberg, it was really dry as well. So it was like, she didn't get anything right in that.
I felt that Larea got what I've heard called the loser edit. So you see a lot of a person in the episode that they get kicked from because it's the last you'll ever see of them. Yeah. So I felt she was going home just because she got more screen time and was not doing well. So there was no way that she was going to be Star Baker.
Right.
Peter Star Baker. Yeah, I think that was pretty obvious and well deserved.
Yeah,
I agree.
Do you know what I love about Peter? He's like a super fan of Bake Off. Like he's like, oh, I learned how to bake because so and so in season 3 did this, and I'm just like, how old are you? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is insane. So yeah, he's like the first, like, I guess, next generation of bakers that are now coming up and are eligible, old enough to be on the show, that grew up watching the show, which is insane to me because I've been watching it since the beginning and I feel like a grandma now. But you know, just call me,
every time he
call
mentions he's been watching it for half his life or whatever, and Paul's just like, you can see Paul wilt at how old that must make him. Okay, so we're going to take a quick commercial break, but stay tuned because afterwards we are talking about episode 2, Biscuit Week. You won't want to miss it. All right, we're back. We're going to talk about episode 2, Biscuit Week. The Netflix description says, make it snappy, make it mango. The bakers devise novel chocolate Florentines, stress over filled macaroons, and sculpt memorable meals in biscuit.
Do they call it Biscuit Week in the US or do they call it Cookie Week?
They do call it Biscuit Week.
Okay, they don't like edit everything for us. It's a very that's what I really like about Great British Bake Off. I watch it and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this stuff is, and that's what's intriguing about it. So when they like Americanize it with like the bus cakes, I'm like, I don't like this. Make it very British.
That's cool. I like that because I'm just so used to some of our exports getting completely like re-edited or redone for the US market, and I think we don't get the same treatment the other way around a lot of the time, so it's nice to share our cultures, you know.
The only thing I've noticed since Netflix has become sort of a co-producer in some ways, they do say Great British Baking. They clearly do a second take at the beginning where they introduce it and say Great British Baking Show.
Oh, do they? Oh.
Yes.
I think they just dub it. I don't think they do another take. I think they dub Baking Show over Bake Off.
I've been watching their mouths, though. And and sometimes it's very clearly show instead of off because of the way. Anyway, I paused and went back a couple times.
Too long watching people's mouths.
Noel says that biscuits in America are called the sidewalk.
It's true.
I enjoyed that opening so much.
What is a Florentine?
It's a biscuit.
Yeah, LJ, why don't you tell us Americans what a Florentine is?
Yeah, I've never heard of a Florentine.
I don't like Florentines because I hate dried fruit. So, but basically, it's like a nutty. It's like nuts and dried fruit in caramel into like a thin, like wafer thin biscuit, and usually it's like either got chocolate drizzled on it or it's dipped on one side in I don't know the detail because I don't eat them, so, but yeah, that's basically my take on what they are.
So it's like a fruitcake cookie.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
All I know is that they're supposed to have a snap because that's what they kept harping on.
They're thin, snappy cookies. Yeah.
I like when they do that on Bake Off. When something's supposed to have like a snap or something, you go around, they all just like bend it. You're like, oh, yours didn't snap. And like, you know, you feel good about yourself.
They're peeling it apart.
They do it in slow motion. Yeah, I know. Just to really rub it in.
I know it's supposed to have a snap.
It is definitely helpful for the viewer, considering we can't taste any of these things. It's nice to have other indicators where you can just look at it or hear it and be like, oh, that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
Lottie gets the first Hollywood handshake of the season.
And she was dead inside.
I love her.
But
also, she made her Florentines. I feel like we're starting to see like she hates being uniform and sort of rule following. Like, her rebelliousness is like more apparent more and more.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though she said she wasn't going to make them uniform, they were uniform in size.
They were.
And I feel like they all looked very nice and neat together.
Yeah. I think there's looking a mess, and then there's like controlled, artistic, like
Jackson Pollock.
Ununiformity.
Yeah, Jackson Pollock purposely making a mess.
Clever. I think that's a clever way of doing that, I think.
Because there is a difference between Jackson Pollock and me accidentally spilling paint somewhere. Like, they're not the same at all.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So yeah, I thought she very much seemed to deserve that handshake because, you know, they looked great. They snapped. They loved the flavors. Why not get a handshake?
It didn't seem like the bakers had many problems with baking these, except for running out of time.
Except for Rowan just deciding to not decorate all of them. And
Rowan being overly ambitious again.
Waistcoats on them. Why? Just dip them in chocolate. Why waistcoats?
Because he has a waistcoat collection, LJ.
But it's not gonna snap.
Well, it made me laugh when they did the he was talking about his like antique waistcoat with Prue, and that just goes, Paul, this is what posh people talk about. Which really made me laugh.
So I can tell that Justine is very annoyed by Rowan, but his whole like promising more and then never delivering, yes, annoying. But I find him sort of delightfully messy. Like, and the way he's into the waistcoats. No. Oh, I mean, we'll see. But
I wanted him gone this episode.
Well, I think his personality is lovely, but yes, he keeps falling short on
his personality.
I'm not sure his personality is lovely. His personality is infuriating because he is told time and again in very nice ways, mate, stop over-promising and under-delivering and then you'll be fine, and he just doesn't fucking listen, and that is so irritating. And he's like, oh, I haven't listened again, and it's like, no, don't laugh at me.
It's only the second episode, and they've probably been practicing all these things again, so it's either stick with what you're already trying to do and have practiced, or completely change your recipe, which, as we know, does not turn out well.
Sure, I don't know. I guess I'm a bit like Justine, where I'm just like, oh, for God's sake, man, get it together.
I mean, do I think he deserves to stay? No, I do not.
I don't
but
think
I can't really fault him for wanting to make something really cool.
Yeah.
And then sit back and drink tea when it doesn't go according to plan because he didn't practice.
All right, the technical challenge, coconut macaroons. They had to make 6 with a chocolate filling and a chocolate drizzle, and 6 with a mango curd center. So I was surprised by how few of the bakers were familiar with macaroons. Yeah, these are very popular in America.
Interesting, because I think the French macaron has become the like ubiquitous. That's what people think of when you talk about macaron.
Oh yeah, should we do a quick lesson on macaron versus macaroon?
Ooh,
because
go ahead. Yeah.
People so they are 2 different cookies. There's macaron with only 1 O, and as LJ said, it's a French thing. It's made with almond flour. It's got the 2 little cookies that sandwich a filling.
Yeah, looks like
you
a
see
little
them all the time
hamburger.
on Bake Off.
Yes.
Yeah, a little
so
dessert
cute.
hamburger. Yeah. And a macaroon is, I think, always coconut. As far as I know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rough coconut and very sweet and made in sort of a mound kind of shape.
Yeah.
I hate macaroons because I hate coconut.
Oh no!
Whoa!
I love
someone's
macaroons.
not making.
No, I've never made
macaroons.
macaroons. I would not make them. I'm not a big coconut. I like coconut in like savory dishes, but not cookies. And
What if
sweet
it's
things.
a banana flavored macaroon?
No, thank you. I mean, please.
I love you, LJ. I'm sorry.
So yeah, I think that I don't think it's. I think they've just fallen out of favour. So people don't eat them as much over here. You don't see them very often.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
They're very Christmassy to me. Like, whenever I go to my husband's like family Christmas Eve, we always have macaroons on the cookie plate.
I always think of Disneyland when I think of coconut macaroons because I love their Matterhorn macaroons. It's shaped like their Matterhorn ride, and there's icing on top that looks like the snow on capping the mountain. It's really cute and really delicious.
Ah.
I have to get one every time I go to Disneyland, and usually get some to take home as well.
I think the main challenge that the bakers had with the macaroons was getting the chocolate ones the same size as the mango ones, because as soon as they realized they had to like fill the chocolate, I think their sizes just expanded and expanded to like encapsulate the chocolate that they put in. That seemed to be the main issue.
Well, according to Sura, that was intentional.
Yeah. I think another big issue was that a good half of them were underbaked.
Right.
Yes.
Them not knowing to leave it in and pull it out when it looked more golden. Yeah, that was a real shame.
They were told in the instructions, it said golden brown, because there was like a little montage of them going, oh, it says golden
like,
brown.
what's golden? I'm like, golden.
I was really surprised, but pleasantly so, that Mark, with a K, he was having real trouble with his curd thickening. So he spent like half his time on his curd. And then I was like, is he going to get everything out on time? Like, is it going to work? But he ended up coming second, which
did good.
I thought was
well
done. Well done. You were right to spend time on your curd.
He was more surprised than any of us. He was like, what?
Rowan was last, and here's the other. And I'm like, God, I'm so mad that technical doesn't wait more.
I know. Rowan did no good.
No
Yeah,
good.
Dave won this one, and Sura did not accidentally bump his macaroons onto the floor, so it was all good.
No. Despite Noel trying to egg her on to do so.
Yeah. I like that he teased her a little bit and she didn't, she took it well.
Yeah. Noel and Sura have a good relationship as well, I think.
So the final showstopper for this episode was making a biscuit table setting that represents a memorable meal. I don't think they quite all followed this brief, but whatever.
And it has to be 3D.
Yes.
Yeah. The one that I was most annoyed with, I think, was probably Mac, because I think he tried to attempt this in practice and realized that he wasn't very good at actually doing any kind of molding. So was like, I'm just going to make it flat pack. And I'm like, that's not what they're looking for,
That's
mate.
not,
That's not the brief.
Yeah.
So
Not the brief.
They specifically said molding. They wanted to see shapes in the biscuit, which I think is why Dave really excelled in this one. Those
Yeah, he
lamps
did
look
so
so
well.
cool. The really nice curve. It's so hard to get a curve out of a cookie like that.
But also the way he was decorating them, they almost looked like a glaze on pottery. Like, it looked so realistic. I thought it looked so good. He did really well.
Yeah, his looked amazing. Your girl Linda, I thought hers looked really pretty, like very delicate.
Yeah.
This
It
was
was
why I
very
was
pretty.
like, okay, Linda, you got skills. Like, you're not just like a happy grandma who's just like baking and entered for a laugh. Like, you can do stuff.
And that she did it with shortbread instead of gingerbread. I thought that was, I mean, obviously they didn't like the taste as much, but I thought just the fact that she never, like, not once, I was afraid that we were going to get like a montage of all of her cookies crumbling or something, and we never did.
Yeah. Anyone that chose shortbread in this challenge, I was just like, oh God, why? Why would you make life hard for yourself? This is going to be terrible. Rowan stressed me out, as always, with his shortbread lighthouse.
Getting more rustic by the minute.
Maybe that's why I just want Rowan gone, because he's just like stress-inducing. I'm like, God, stop it.
Our girl Lottie made that Viking longboat, which was just amazing.
I loved that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was very stressed out when she couldn't get the boat out of the mold at first, and then she did, and I was like, thank God.
She reminds me a little bit of Helena from the season before. Like, she has that goth edge without it going like overboard, and she has that rapport with Noel. Like, I feel like she's like the slightly more toned down version, with like the Viking medal and the Viking boat and a skull for the cake, things like that.
Yeah.
I thought Mark with the K, his Ethiopian dish set looked good, even though it was strong and made them cough.
But they liked it. It wasn't
Yeah.
like too strong.
And I think it was quite smart for him to go with that theme, because I think it's quite forgiving of when, because, Ethiopian, I guess, dinner service or, dinner plating would be like hand molded clay pots. And like, so if you're not perfect and like, you know, exactly, I don't know, if it looks more rustic, it still works for the theme. I thought that was quite clever of him.
That's something else I like about Mark is that, well, first of all, he seems well traveled, and he did this from Ethiopian inspired. His Florentine was a mango lassi inspired one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like that about him a lot.
Yeah, and I believe
Yeah.
he did Turkish flavors for the Battenberg,
Yeah.
I think,
He
if I
did.
remember.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
his honeymoon or something, wasn't it? Or he'd been somewhere, I can't remember.
Yeah, the Turkish one, because that's when he brought up that it was his wedding anniversary.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I don't know about you guys, but Mark with a C, his like morning coffee and toast, they seem to rave about how good it looked, but I wasn't sure if it was one of the ones that most impressed me.
I thought it was
Maybe
cute.
maybe I'm being harsh.
I thought it was cute too. I feel like, again, these early episodes, we don't get a long look at anyone's submission, really. And I wanted to
No.
see more of his because the tea looked quite clever, but I couldn't really tell. It looked like he had done something to make it look like there was tea in the cup, but it wasn't
Right.
tea.
I couldn't
Yeah.
see that.
So
Yeah.
Catch
I
that.
think maybe if we'd gotten a closer look, it would have been more impressive, maybe.
Peter's looked awesome. The Scottish burn supper,
Oh, yeah,
Burnside
the
supper with the
haggis.
haggis with the cranachan filling. I thought
That
that
was really
so
smart, too.
Good, so funny, yeah, really witty. Because you cut in and it kind of looks a bit like there's because of the red fleckles. There's like, oh, it does look a bit like if you cut into a haggis. It's yeah. Really
Again,
good.
that was playing to some of the potential pitfalls of the challenge, which was, oh, it's going to be difficult to make a really neat and tidy thing out of biscuit. So I'm
Right.
going to make a sheep's stomach
Yeah,
and fill it with
exactly.
something delicious. So I thought that was a pretty clever approach.
Yeah. Oh, also, Dave did coffee and chocolate in both episodes.
Oh,
Man,
Dave.
he does coffee a lot.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
But it must have been impressive because Dave won Star Baker.
Yeah.
He did.
And tragically, Mac was sent
I
home.
was so disappointed.
I was too. Definitely get Rowan's ass out of there.
I
instead.
think Rowan at this
I
point
think
I was
Rowan
like,
should have
okay,
gone
Rowan needs to go. I mean, Mac seemed a little bit out of his depth because he couldn't handle the molding aspect, but he was like third in technical and Rowan was dead last. So I don't understand how that decision got made. I think that was really
Well, and Rowan said my ideas saved me, and I do think that's the only thing is I think they
Yeah.
think his ideas have potential. The thing that disappointed me the most about Mac leaving is I was like having little mini dreams of like more bee adventures so we could get bee adventure tales from Meg as well.
Yes, I really wanted recipes of him using his own honey, but stay tuned.
Shame. I think it was interesting when the judges do their little deliberation in the tent with Noel and Matt, and they sort of describe their thinking just before they announce their decision. And Matt asked the question, if either one of Mac or Rowan stay, because they're both in danger, who do you think's more likely to kind of improve? And I was like, obviously Mac would improve more because Rowan doesn't take any advice because Prue said that. Rowan doesn't take any advice, but then she was like, yeah, but Mac, you know, he's kind of consistent, but he's not blowing me away. And I'm like, but you could say that about so many bakers at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I think if he'd been given a chance, I think you would have seen better stuff from him. And I don't think that
I think
of
he
Rowan,
would have
so
listened to the criticism and taken it constructively.
right.
Yeah.
So I think they made the wrong call.
I wish that they didn't start this season out with such sort of hard, like sculpting and architecture. I mean, you're gonna get architecture, but like have them do like a 3-tiered cake or something
Yeah.
that's like difficult in that sense, but not like with intricate, like super, I don't know, the molding, like having to be an actual artist.
Right.
We've seen in past seasons people mess up on just a tiered cake and like, you know, stacking things
Yeah.
when they're still hot and they
That's quite hard. Like, that's hard enough.
yeah.
Yeah, they should have a back to basics season where it's just make really impressive, seemingly simple bakes.
They almost have
Yeah.
enough for like an all-star season. I'm waiting for that to happen.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I'd love that.
All right, so that's only the beginning of the Great British Bake Off. We will continue with covering the rest of this season, including episodes 3 and 4 next time. So that's Bread Week and Chocolate Week. But before that, let's jump on over to our back burner.
I do not want to jump onto a back burner. I just want to put that out there.
Diving into acid, we can do that, right?
Dive into acid, jump onto our back burner.
Wow.
I'm injured.
So on today's back burner, we have several updates from former Bon Appetit ladies. We're going to talk about Carla, Gabby, Molly, and Sola. So first up, Carla announced that she has a new Patreon exclusive cooking show called Carla's Cooking Show.
Yay!
I signed up for both Carla and Molly's Patreons. I can tell you Carla's first recipe video is crispy chicken confit and potatoes.
Oh, wow.
That sounds good.
I would love to sign up for both of their Patreons. It's right up my street, but I'm literally at the point now where I'm about to go on maternity leave. So I'm like getting rid of all my Patreon subscriptions temporarily whilst I'm on maternity leave because I can't afford it. So I'm like, this is the exact wrong time to be launching a Patreon, but I will sign up if they're still doing it when I go back.
Also, Justine, you might be interested to know, Carla said in response to a question that the majority of her first set of recipes are vegetarian. So even though this one wasn't, it sounds like there's a lot of vegetarian recipes coming your way.
And they're Dutch oven recipes, and I've got a Dutch oven.
Ooh, nice.
You may see some Carla recipes from me in the future. And also a Molly recipe.
All right, yeah, let's talk about Molly. So Molly has a new cookbook coming out called Cook This Book. It will be available in April of 2021. And an interesting thing about this cookbook is that it's going to have QR codes that will link to videos of her explaining the recipe or explaining techniques. And she also announced her Patreon recipe club, and she has merch.
Yeah, interesting thing about Molly is there's not videos on her Patreon. They're just weekly recipe cards. She did say that she's got like a surprise. She'll be doing videos for something in the future, and I don't know if she's hinting on something else or just alluding to her cookbook.
Speaking of books, Sola announced that she has a book deal coming in fall of 2022, so we're going to have to wait a little while for that one, but she mentioned this at the very end of the Astronaut Thanksgiving episode of Stump Sola. Oh, and she also has a new website, hellosola.com.
Where you can get her recipes all in one place.
I think she also mentioned in the Babish episode that she got 12 offers for a book, so 12 book offers.
Amazing.
So things are working out for her.
I'm so pleased for her.
And finally, Gabby was one of the last people still at Bon Appetit, but she has officially left now. She is no longer test kitchen manager.
Well done, Gabby. I'm pleased for you. I love this.
Yeah,
for
we're
you.
wishing her all the best. And one way to support her is to go to her website, gabbyskitchen.com, and sign up for her newsletter. And she also has a YouTube channel where she has started to post her own cooking videos.
I watched a bunch of videos this weekend from all the ladies and Rick. I was like, this feels like the old BA days, you know?
Aww. Yeah, well, we're wishing them all the very best.
Indeed.
All right, now's the time in the episode where we give you guys some shout outs. Thank you so much to everyone who has left us a comment or chatted with us on social media. We really appreciate it. We had some great feedback about salt, fat, acid, heat. John agreed that he wanted a little bit more exploration of spicy heat in the heat episode, and he would have loved to see them talk about the Chinese concepts of different types of spice. Andrew also weighed in on salt, fat, acid, heat. He said he makes the broccoli pasta with breadcrumbs on the regular and confirmed that lemon juice and lemon zest really make a difference. We had a lot of people chiming in for National Homemade Bread Day. Nourish Table said that they made some bread that was, quote, doing terrific work as a doorstop, end quote. But then we encouraged them to try again, and they did, and they came back with some pretty good focaccia. So well done.
Good job.
Yay, that's great.
Courtney from the Cult of Domesticity podcast, The Edmonton Tourist, Ben and the Phantoms, Al Manat, Mrs. Casper Cooks, and Margaret also shared what they were baking on Homemade Bread Day. And on Twitter, we put up a little survey about which was the best type of Thanksgiving pie. We got a lot of feedback on that one, thanks to Oof, Right in the Childhood podcast, Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries, reformed bandits and their brother Chris. They had a little sibling rivalry about what was the best pie. Silent Night, the ethereal bisexual goth, and Yanni also weighed in on Thanksgiving pie. And I really liked Abby's comment. She said, literally whatever, as long as you eat it alone in your apartment while watching Drag Race and spray whipped cream directly into your mouth as a palate cleanser before switching to your glass of wine. If this isn't your tradition, you're missing out.
We have the best listeners ever.
Thanks, Abby.
So where do we all land on the best? What's our favorite Thanksgiving pie?
For Thanksgiving.
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
Pecan.
You're outvoted, Amanda.
That's all right. I figured I would be.
Go to the children's table.
And finally, quick fire shout out to a bunch of people for chiming in. Thank you, True Crime and Cocktails Podcast, Drunk Dish Podcast, Macaroni Sounds Podcast, Two Book Ramblers Podcast, Sunny from the Book of Lies Podcast, Jen from One Person's Trash is Our Treasure Podcast, I Too Podcast, Art History for All Podcast, Demiworld Podcast, the Appaholics Podcast, Mouse and Weens Podcast, Sam and Mandy from the Me vs. You Podcast. All right, moving on from podcasters, we've got Fig Tree, Conceal My Hands, Yes Canada, Emoji of a Lemon, Out of Context Sola L. Whaley, Sola's Spoon, Mrs. Funny Bakes, Tadpole, Element M, Danny, Nessie, Tamara, Ray, Ria, Jose, Mary, Reed, Brenna, JBB, Paulina, Bree, Liz, Doug, Abigail, Mike B, and Mike G.
Wow.
And if we didn't say your name, it's because there's so many people.
Oh my God.
But thank you everyone. And we would love to share a review, but we don't have one this week. So if you are enjoying Pod Appétit, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us out and it helps new listeners find us, and we will share your review right here on the podcast.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And finally, stay tuned for our next episode where we continue our coverage of the 2020 Great British Bake Off with episode 3, Bread Week, and episode 4, Chocolate Week.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Sunny Hepburn.
And I'm Brandy Fleeks.
And this is
Book of Lies,
the podcast, where we discuss liars, cheats, and thieves.
Scammers, and dirty rotten scoundrels.
So tune in for new episodes every Tuesday to hear about another low-down dirty liar.
And learn how to spot them.
So that's Book of Lies Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast player or on Twitter at Book of Lies Pod, on Instagram at Book of Lies Podcast, and on Facebook at Book of Lies Podcast.
And if you want to send us an email, send us one at bookofliespodcast@gmail.com.
Okay?
Bye-bye.